Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Train crossing the Missouri River on tracks laid on ice near Bismarck, North Dakota. Photo taken in March 1879 during the harsh winter that allowed temporary crossings over the frozen river. The first White Pass and Yukon Railroad passenger train crossing the summit of White Pass in Alaska, recorded in 1899. This railroad was crucial for transporting people and supplies during the Klondike Gold Rush. The famous Deadwood coach is photographed in 1889 crossing a bridge amid the natural landscape of the Old West. A drinking party during Custer's expedition to Dakota Territory in 1874. The expedition aimed to explore the resource-rich Black Hills region. Recording of the town of Skagway in Alaska on May 20, 1898. The location was an important starting point for adventurers and miners during the Klondike Gold Rush, drawing thousands in search of fortune in the icy northern regions. Clean-up Day at the Deadwood Terra Gold Mill in Terraville, Dakota Territory, photographed in 1888. Clean-up referred to the final collection of gold after the ore was processed with stamp mills. Miners work in an underground mine in Virginia City, Nevada in 1867. The town was one of the most important centers of the Silver Rush, especially after the discovery of the Comstock lode in 1859. Workers bend iron rails in 10 Mile Canyon, Nevada between 1864 and 1885. Activities like this were fundamental to railroad construction, enabling transport expansion and economic integration of American West territories. Miners conduct placer gold mining in Columbia, Tuolumne County, California. The image was published in 1866 during the peak of gold rush activities. Cowboys who worked for Texas John Slaughter are photographed around 1885. Slaughter was a famous rancher and sheriff known for his work in the American Southwest. Workers pose at the entrance of the Montana mine around 1889. Mining was one of the region's main economic activities, drawing people in search of opportunities and wealth. An expedition boat sails along the Truckee River in western Nevada around 1867. The river was an important route for transporting people, supplies, and equipment during scientific explorations, geographical surveys, and mining activities. 5th Cavalry soldiers on Land Rush Day in Indian Territory. The troops' horses were trained to lie down on command. Photo taken on April 22, 1889, during one of the most significant moments of United States westward expansion. Recording of Front Street in Nome, Alaska, made in 1900. The location became world-renowned during the Nome Gold Rush, drawing thousands of prospectors and adventurers seeking wealth in the Arctic regions. Chief Powderface poses alongside his wife and son in Hays, Kansas, photographed in 1889. Powderface was a respected indigenous leader of the Great Plains region, representing the strength and dignity of Native families during a period of intense change. Press representatives accompany an excursion group 275 miles west of Omaha, photographed on October 24, 1866. The trip was part of an event organized by the Union Pacific Railroad during the construction of the first transcontinental railroad in the United States. A group of Paiute natives lights a fire by friction in northern Arizona around 1874. This traditional method, using dry wood rubbing, demonstrates ancestral knowledge of survival techniques and natural resource management. Two Mescalero Apache women are photographed at a camp in New Mexico between 1890 and 1910. The Mescalero community was part of the Apache cultural group, traditionally living by hunting, gathering, and agricultural practices adapted to the American Southwest environment. A young rider known as the Little Horse Wrangler is photographed in Bonham, Texas. The image represents the tradition of ranching families where children learn to handle horses and take part in ranch activities from an early age. James Marr Kellerman, a cowboy who worked at Smoky Hills Ranch in Gove County, Kansas, is photographed in 1885. Cowboys like him were responsible for essential tasks such as cattle handling, fence maintenance, and organizing long cattle drives. View of the town of Cornucopia in Oregon, photographed in 1884. The town emerged during the gold rush, attracting many miners seeking wealth in the nearby mountains. Burlington Locomotive Number 7 is photographed in Nebraska during a pivotal period of railroad expansion in the United States. Railroads played a fundamental role in the country's economic and social development, enabling the transport of people and goods across distant regions. Chinese immigrants use a sluicing system for mining around 1871. This method involved washing sediment with water through wooden channels to separate gold and other minerals. Chinese camp at Browns, photographed between 1865 and 1869. Communities like this were formed by Chinese immigrants who worked primarily on railroad construction, mining, and other sectors fundamental to the American West's expansion. Members of the Piegan Nation are photographed around 1890. The Piegan are part of the Blackfoot group and inhabited the Great Plains regions, especially in what is now Montana, in the United States and parts of Canada. Two miners, McMillan and Hubbard, pose after a deer hunt near Deadwood during the winter of 1887 to 1888. Hunting was a common practice among miners and pioneers in the American West, serving as both a food source and a recreational activity amid harsh living conditions. Gold miners work in a river in California around 1890. The scene shows the use of simple tools such as shovels and sluice boxes used to separate gold from gravel and sand. Members of the Apache Nation deliver bales of hay at Fort Apache, Arizona in 1893. The scene depicts collaboration between indigenous communities and military authorities during a period of changing relations between Native peoples and the U.S. government. Drivers changed the stagecoach horses on the Myrtle Point-Roseburg stage line in Oregon. Swapping animals was a common practice to keep the journey going without interruptions, preserving endurance and speed on long routes. A United States Postal Service inspector is photographed during his journey through Alaska in 1898. These professionals were responsible for ensuring the security and efficiency of mail routes, often traveling long distances in isolated and hard-to-reach territories. View of Gayville in Deadwood Gulch, Black Hills, Dakota Territory, photographed in 1876. The settlement consisted of wooden cabins and tents, typical of mining camps that sprang up during the Black Hills Gold Rush. Valentine T. McGillicuddy, a surgeon and surveyor, takes part in a resistance march with General Crook's expedition to the Black Hills in Dakota Territory in 1876. Members of the Pawnee Nation pose in front of one of their traditional dwellings, known as earth lodges. These structures, built with wood, earth, and grass, provided thermal insulation and durability against the Great Plains weather conditions. Interior of a sawmill in Fremont County, Idaho, photographed in 1872. Sawmills played an essential role in supplying lumber for building houses, railroads, and other infrastructure during the United States' westward expansion. Harrison Avenue in Guthrie, Oklahoma Territory, is photographed in May 1893. The scene shows a busy commercial street with dry goods stores, shoemakers, and general goods, along with horse-drawn wagons typical of the era. Cattle ranchers brand calves during a roundup in 1888. Branding was an essential practice to identify animal ownership, especially on large shared pastures. Members of a Native American community pose in front of teepees in Aberdeen, South Dakota, in 1880. The cone-shaped dwellings were traditionally built with wood and hides, providing durability and mobility for the Great Plains tribes. Gold miners and their companions pose in front of a cabin in the Colorado Mountains around 1898. Mining was one of the region's main economic activities, drawing workers and adventurers in search of riches. Butterfield Stage Route between Colorado and California. Photograph taken between 1886 and 1894, showing one of the most important transport and communication routes in the American West at the end of the 19th century. The Dodge City Cowboy Band is photographed in 1885. The musical group was made up of local cowboys who, in addition to their field work, performed at community events and city celebrations. Men pose with cattle on a ranch in the Sierra Madre around 1900. The region, located in northern Mexico and southern United States, was known for large-scale cattle ranching. Major Pease's Ranch on the banks of the Yellowstone River in Montana, photographed in 1872. The log cabin with a sod roof displays the construction style used by pioneers on the American frontier. Workers load coal at an open-pit mine in Wilburton, then Indian Territory, around 1898. Coal mining was one of the region's main economic activities, using labor-intensive methods and animal traction to transport the ore. The daughters of Asababi, young members of the Comanche Nation, are photographed between 1881 and 1885. The image captures the presence and cultural identity of Comanche families, one of the Great Plains tribes known for their equestrian skills and resilience in defending their territories. Camp of the King Survey Team, photographed between 1869 and 1878. The group was part of the United States geological exploration of the 40th parallel, led by geologist Clarence King. Three miners pose next to a wagon loaded with camping supplies in Goldfield, Nevada, around 1900 to 1905. Donkeys pulled the vehicle, essential for transporting tools, provisions, and equipment needed for mining. A family poses in front of a log cabin in New Mexico around 1895. Cabins of this type were common among American West settlers, built with local materials and designed to provide sturdy shelter in isolated environments. The Lion Well, located in the Colorado Desert, was a water vending point around 1900. In arid regions like this, access to water was essential for travelers, cattle ranchers, and workers, turning wells into strategic supply and trading locations. A roundup scene recorded in Belfourche in 1887 shows cowboys gathering large herds of cattle on the vast plains. Such operations were fundamental for cattle management, allowing branding, sorting, and transportation of the animals. Commercial shops in an American frontier town display simple storefronts with signs for services such as watchmaker, jeweler, and painters. The scene depicts a typical emerging urban center where essential businesses met the needs of residents and travelers. A group of visitors from Sioux City takes a stagecoach ride at the Great Hot Springs in Dakota in 1889. The image shows the horse-drawn coach carrying men, women, and children in a popular recreational activity of the era. Members of the Shoshone Nation are photographed in front of their teepees between 1880 and 1910. Teepees were traditional dwellings of the Great Plains communities, offering mobility and protection from the elements. A fisherman's cabin on the shores of Grand Lake, Colorado, photographed in 1874. Structures like this were common in the area, serving as shelter for those living by fishing or local trade. A rancher's daughter from Mesa Creek Valley in Colorado on her way to school around 1898. The scene represents the daily routine of pioneer families living in rural and isolated areas where accessing education required long journeys. The Daily Reporter newspaper team poses for a photograph in Corinne, Utah, between 1869 and 1878. The paper was one of the essential communication channels in the town, informing residents about local and national news and important events. Reynolds and Dowling Camp on Quaking Asp Hill, Utah, photographed between 1868 and 1870. Such camps were common during land surveys, mining explorations, or railroad construction expeditions in the American West. Chinese Camp at Browns, photographed between 1865 and 1869. Communities like this were formed by Chinese immigrants who worked primarily on railroad construction, mining, and other sectors fundamental to the American West's expansion. Members of the faculty at the Albuquerque Indian School are photographed in 1883. The school was one of several institutions in the United States aimed at educating Native American children and promoting cultural assimilation policies. A Cheyenne woman works in an open-air summer lodge in Indian Territory around 1871. She is engaged in traditional beadwork, an important cultural practice for decorating clothing, and objects with colorful beads. A group of men pose in front of the Sweetwater Saloon in Sweetwater, Texas. Saloons like this were important gathering spots in Old West towns, offering drinks, meals, and social spaces for workers, travelers, and locals. The Bartee Ranch, located at Hat Creek, South Dakota, is photographed in 1890. The property is part of the typical Great Plains landscape, featuring wooden houses surrounded by trees and near a watercourse essential for cattle ranching and residents' livelihood. Owners and miners pose at the entrance of the Philmont Mine in Siskiyou County, California, around 1891. Mines like this were fundamental to the region's economic development, driven by the search for gold and other valuable minerals in the 19th century. A boarding house in Midland, Texas, photographed in 1882. Establishments like this provided lodging and meals for workers, travelers, and new settlers drawn by economic growth and railroad expansion. A blacksmith and wheelwright shop in Round Rock, Texas, around 1880. These establishments were essential for communities, repairing tools, horseshoes, and wagon wheels, as well as crafting new equipment for farmers and travelers. Camp in Carbonateville, Arizona, circa 1891. The small town briefly prospered during the silver mining boom. The Warren M. Johnson family posing at the Grand Canyon around 1889 to 1890. The image shows the pioneering spirit and lifestyle of families who lived in or visited this iconic U.S. region in the late 19th century. Members of the Ute tribe beside a tent made of elk hide. The image was recorded between 1871 and 1874, documenting the traditional way of life of this native people in the western United States. Andren Sylvester behind the bar of his saloon in Georgetown, Colorado. The photograph was taken between 1892 and 1900, revealing the detailed decor and classic atmosphere of American Old West bars. A Mormon family poses in front of their cabin in the Great Salt Lake Valley around 1868. The scene captures the daily life of pioneers who settled the region, building simple homes and living self-sufficiently. Indigenous dwellings in Temecula, California, around 1880. Structures made of wood, thatch, and clay were common among local communities, adapted to the region's climate and natural resources. Seen at the Tehachapa Sinks, California, around 1868. The area was an important stopover for travelers and traders, with covered wagons parked near simple wooden structures amid the arid hills. Saloon between 1883 and 1889, a typical gathering spot in the Old West with rustic decor and a lively atmosphere filled by travelers, miners, and locals. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.